Good tunes, good brew, good buddies. I feel great, man. I feel great.
Back, everybody. It is Friday here with Red Zone Sports. I am Vinny, and there's been something that's just been brewing on my mind for months now, even years, to be totally honest. But as of late, obviously, with all the college football turmoil and just shocks to the system and teams moving divisions and everything else, wanted to do a quick little pod here and talk about kind of what the dream college football structure would look like, right? I'm sure I'm going to get a million comments here, upset, pissed off, people not happy with kind of what my dream structure would look like. But as goes life. First off, before we get started, please hit that thumbs up, subscribe button if you aren't already. Really helps the show and helps and allows us to do more content on all platforms. So if you could do that, that'd be awesome. Also, feel free to drop me a comment. Would love to kind of go back and forth with a ton of fans out there, talk about what you agree with, what you don't agree with, and that's what makes all this fun, right? So before I forget what I'm going to talk about here, let's hit it. So as we know, college football is obviously just moving and shaking. Teams and conferences are growing, some are shrinking. Every day it seems like there's new news and rumors about teams switching conferences, and you have teams in LA now joining the Big Ten. It's all over the map. So one of the things that I would love to see happen is just get it a little bit more structured, and let's stop ignoring the elephant in the room, right? Let's get these conferences organized once and for all. Let's have it larger. Let's have a legitimate playoff structure. We can get TV rights organized, media rights, NIL, all that on one even playing field across the board. And I think there's a way to do it. I think the one caveat is going to be where a lot of college football fans get pretty upset is it's going to look similar and feel a little bit similar to the NFL. And what I mean by that is, well, let's just go ahead and get to it. Fixing college football. One of the things that I think is not a problem necessarily, but right now you have so many conferences, so many teams, it makes it really tough. But in all reality, if we all stop pretending what we're seeing, is there's really 4 to 6 main conferences that are out there, right? And in those conferences, there's probably 3 to 4 teams, maybe not in every conference, but in a lot of them that are just kind of dead weight. Like, let's just call a spade and what it is. You have some teams that just have no shot, even if they are in the SEC or they're in the Big 12, of ever getting to a maybe conference championship game, let alone the playoff where it's at today. So I think one of the things that would make this pretty awesome is let's restructure, baby. Let's restructure and expand it and break it down into 4 main conferences. Obviously, these names are working titles, as they say in the showbiz. But what if we were able to break it down into 4 main conferences? Each conference would consist of 16 teams. You would have each of those 16 teams play 8 conference games and 2 non-conference games. The caveat and the one thing that makes, I think, my biggest selling point to this is no more, what they call cupcake games, right? I'm tired of seeing Florida State play Savannah State. I'm tired of seeing Alabama play Jackson State. These teams have no shot in business of playing on that field. It's a money grab. It's essentially a practice game. Let's put an end to it, And I think it's time to move on from you have to have a perfect season in order to get into the playoff or to be even considered, right? We always talk about strength of schedule, and there's just so many caveats. And I think the big problem is it hurts the consumer, right? It hurts us in terms of watchability. I mean, some of these teams, if you go look at their schedule in 2023, 2024, there's not an interesting game for the first month. Like, I have no interest in watching some of these. So let's change that, right? Let's get 8 conference games on the books. They can still play 2 non-conference games, but it's going to be versus legitimate competition, right? I think I can speak for everybody when it say, I'd rather see a 1-loss or 2-loss Georgia or Alabama or LSU or something like that, Michigan, Ohio State, if all those games are competitive and everybody's beating up on each other, right? It's only better for the consumer. It's better for the product, TV, everything. Week in and week out, if we guarantee 10 straight weeks of just awesome football. So I think that's the one model that I would love to see the teams move to is an 8 conference games, 2 non-conference versus another Power 4 team. So how it would go from there is the top 8 schools from each conference would get a playoff bid. Do the math, 8 teams from each conference, 4 conferences, you're talking about a 32 team playoff. It would be half the size of March Madness. You would get it. But if you look at it, the FCS series, that kind of the 1AA, what it used to be, they play a 2014 playoff. Like, this is not some out of control or lunatic idea. It's very possible. And I don't see why the college football can't get to this. Again, who's not going to watch a 32 team college football playoff overall? So breaking it down again, the top 8 schools from each conference would get a playoff bid. Those rankings and how it would be seeded would still be based off of national polling or a committee or however you want to do that. So let's say even, if you're the number 1 ranked team in the Pac-12 / Pac-16 in this model, but you're ranked 10th. Well, you might be ranked 10th in the playoff. You might not get the first bid or the first seed in there. The playoff ranking will still go off of national rankings. So I think that's really important because I think a lot of pushback would be in a playoff. Let's just say, Oregon wins the Pac-12 or Utah wins the Pac-12. Well, they're ranked 9th. They shouldn't be over, a 1-loss LSU who's maybe ranked 2nd or 3rd in the SEC. And I agree with that. So I think the rankings should be based off national polling as well, or still. And then when you look at the playoff, if you take 32 teams, 5 tournament wins or playoff wins will take home the national championship. So, you're going to have 2 teams a year playing 15 games. Again, not outrageous considering, when you look at the Georgia team or Michigan team or Ohio State, dude, 80% of those guys are playing in the NFL next year and playing 17 regular season games anyway. So I don't want to hear the whole, it's too many games. We're seeing almost every team play 10, 12, 13 games right now. So add another 2 to the final championship game and you're good. The other caveat that I'd love to see if they move to a major playoff structure for 32 teams is each of those games will be a home game for the top seed. So you would have, if you're LSU, let's say you're in a 1 seed, you're playing at home until you get to the Final 4. Then it moves to neutral site for the Final 4 game or the semifinals. And then obviously the Natty will be a neutral site game as well. So I think that's kind of the overall structure that I would love to see. When you look at it, I think here's where things are going to get a little tricky, right? You must be saying, whoa, what are we going to do? 4 conferences right now. There's 5 major ones or 6 major ones. Sorry, teams are getting cut. I don't know what to tell you. This is just the way business operates and works. I think this is where I'm going to probably get quite a bit of hate in the comments section, but so be it. If you're looking at it, basically what I'm trying to accomplish here is you would expand the current Big 10, Big 12, SEC, and Pac-12, eliminating the ACC and spreading those teams around. So what that could potentially look like, again, open for suggestions here, but you would take the current Big 10, obviously naming it Big 16. I know I'm good with words, but you would take the current teams there. I think the best way to do it and keep competitive balance, again, is you would eliminate teams like Maryland, Rutgers, or Northwestern. Obviously, yes, if you wanted to vote and keep Maryland and drop Minnesota or Indiana or something like that, go for it. But you would add Notre Dame, Louisville, and Clemson to that division. For the SEC, again, there's not much you can do here. The teams are pretty much set starting next year. Obviously, I have Oklahoma and Texas already in that mix. But you would drop teams like Mizzou and Vandy, add in Florida State and Miami. The mid-16, which is that kind of the current Big 12, you wouldn't have to drop any teams necessarily if you didn't want to. You would add in North Carolina, Virginia Tech, Duke, and Pitt. And then the Pac-16, Pac-12, Pac-16, whatever, is where things get a little bit crazy because they're obviously getting all their teams jacked right now, losing UCLA and USC. you would have to find 6 teams to get in there. So I currently would have it as Fresno State, Boise State, San Diego State, Nevada, and then you'd be taking the Northwestern from the Big Ten and Mizzou from the SEC. So that's kind of how I would have it. And then again, you would have it broken down where the top 8 teams that finish in each conference go into a 32-team playoff and duke it out. So feel free to drop any comments. Again, I'd love to do kind of a part 2 on this, talk about it with other people, debate on it. Again, I know we're far away from this. I mean, hell, they're currently at a 14 playoff. Like, we're way, way far away from this. But I do think we're heading this way, right? When you talk about NIL, them wanting to essentially turn this into a professional paid sport where athletes are getting what they deserve, which I believe in, we need to move to a model that is beneficial for everybody. And I think the way to keep competitive balance is to have a larger playoff structure and have 4 solidified conferences with, hopefully 16 teams that could all play at a competitive level against one another. So that's kind of what I came up with. Again, feel free to drop your hate. If you love it, hit a thumbs up. If you hate it, drop me a comment why. Let's talk through it. I am on Twitter at the Notorious BJL. And until next time, that's it.